the School to Industry webinars brought to you by GM-LEN, the Golden Murray Local Learning and Education Network. Hello to everyone who's listening live this morning, and also hello to everyone who's listening to us as a recording. I can see we've got a couple of attendees that have just jumped on. Just so that today, so hello to Mari, I've got Marianne, Ruth and Sue. So there is a little chat icon down the bottom of your screen. So if any of the attendees would like to let us know where they're from, that'd be great. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar for any of our panelists today, just pop your question in the chat bar and we'll get to it as we move through today's session. So we've organised a series of school to industry webinars with different themes. Last week we looked at the STEAM, which was careers around science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. A lot of those skills are very important for today's industry, and obviously there's lots of jobs available. This week we're talking about construction and trades, being Industry Week. Yesterday we focused on building and construction. Today we're looking at plumbing and engineering, and tomorrow it's electrical and data telecommunications. So just to give you a little bit of an overall view on the construction and trades industry, it's a pretty exciting time, especially for our young people who are looking at entering this industry. It's another industry that is set to boom, you know, from now for the next 5 years or more. It's one of the top industries for jobs growth over the next 5 years. Investment in infrastructure like roads, railway, industry, government, new housing developments means many new jobs. The demand for skilled workers in the construction industry is growing at a rapid rate, and there's a major shortage for skilled workers at the moment. So a perfect opportunity for our young people to who are willing to learn and are willing to work hard. It can be a great industry to be a part of. So I'm Liz Connick, I'm your facilitator today, and I would now like to introduce our panel. We have Angus Curry. Hi Angus.
Hey,
Angus is an apprentice steel fabricator, known to most people a welder, is probably the more common term. But I love some of these titles that we're coming across. Last week we had some great ones like solutions director and all sorts of things. So I love it that these titles really do describe the role that you do. So Angus works with CPE Construction. CPE Construction fabricate, erect structural steel and install roof plumbing. You subcontract out to commercial builders across Melbourne, regional Victoria and southern New South Wales. So I guess you get to move around a bit, Angus, is that right?
Yeah, very site to site a fair bit.
Yeah.
And in the workshop as well.
Yeah, great. And next to you we've got Dion. Dion is a roof plumber and also with CPE Construction. So do you guys get to work together a lot, or are you often on different jobs?
It's really good both. Like Angus, all the boys do really the steel inside the workshop, and then once the steel's all been fabricated, it comes out to site, and then they erect the steel and we do the cladding and ongoing work from there. Great.
And we've got Craig Hilder with us today. Welcome, Craig. Craig is a Kyabram lad. He's worked for plumbers in Shepparton, Kyabram over the years, but he's currently working in a pretty exciting place. He's working for the Australian Antarctic Division, and he's located on Macquarie Island Research Station. So welcome to you, Craig. For those who geographically, Macquarie Island is about 1,500 kilometres south of Tasmania. Would that be about right? Yeah?
Yeah, that's roughly right, Liz. Yeah.
Right, okay. And to put that in perspective, from Shepparton to Brisbane, if as the crow flies, is about 1,400 kilometres. So you are a fair way south, and obviously pretty close to the Antarctic, the main continent as well. So,
We are, yeah.
Okay, tell us what's the temperature there today?
Macca, which is what we call it, is actually, it's pretty temperate here. It's about 6 degrees most of the time, 6 to 8.
All right.
So we're down in the furious 50s. So it's as you know, it's a little fly speck on your map. So it cops a lot of weather. So it's it's pretty wild. It's 6 to 8 degrees normally, and about 20 or 30 knots most of the time. So it's
Right. I was going to say there the wind.
Maybe a fortnight of sunshine a year. So it's quite wild, but very beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And technology, it's great, isn't it? How we can just chime in from anywhere. So, alrighty. So yes, welcome to all our attendees. By all means, if you have any questions for our panel tonight, pop them in the chat bar and we'll try and get them answered for you. So let's get started. I want you to think about, I'm going to start with you, Craig, from when you went to school to where you are today. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, sure, Liz. To be honest, it's a pretty it's a tough time when you're 16 or 17 to be making life decisions. And I got through year 11 and didn't really know what the hell I was going to do with myself. I didn't think I'd do that well at VCA or university. So I'd always been fairly good with my hands, and I guess, and decided to try and get into carpentry. And made some phone calls and got on my push bike and rode around. And unfortunately, no one was looking for an apprentice. So plumbing was actually my second choice, and someone gave me a start and a trial, and that's sort of where it all began. So it's a tough time. It is. You really don't know what you're doing, and you've got to make a life decision when you're probably in some ways not really ready for it. So yeah, and then there was obviously just a lot of on-the-job training, and I went out and did some extra training. I did some solar courses and did some, at the time, arc welding was the thing. The boys probably, I know they're probably MIG these days, but I did some arc welding training, and in the future that actually led to me going into engineering for 3 years. So that's it in a nutshell, Liz, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. So obviously, so you really like doing things with your hands. Obviously, that's what you discovered, that obviously carpentry, and then moving into plumbing. But also, it's great to hear that obviously you were looking to see what was probably going to be the next new thing to come along, and solar was obviously coming into the industry. Yeah,
and environmentally as well. I kind of liked it, which is also a reason that I'm down here, I guess. But alternate energies and getting away from fossil fuel type stuff was a passion of mine. So that's kind of drove me in that area, I guess, and still does. So,
okay.
Which is going to be a bigger growth industry for those that are interested. Should be. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Dion, can you tell us a little bit about your journey from school to where you are now?
Well, I dropped out of school probably midway through year 12. Just really wasn't for me. I started working for one of my dad's mates doing excavation. And then that really, I liked it, but I didn't really love it. And then from there, I just really didn't stop working, and I was playing football. Then I went to play for Shep Bears, and part of going there, they said they'll help me get a job as part of the contract. And then the coach was good friends with my boss at the moment, and he set that up. And then since then, did my 4 years. Got qualified, and then started taking a more bigger responsibility role as I went, and now I'm here I am.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got here roof plumber. So
I've done my 6 streams. I can do all the plumbing, but we more specialise in, I say, roofing type here at CPE.
Yeah.
But now I'm running this site as a site supervisor, and starting to take bigger roles like that, I guess. So
great. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I'm only 23.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
No, it's good. I think getting thrown in the deep end is one of the best things they can do. You know, when you're second and third year, you start taking a bigger role and more responsibility. So I guess when your time's to do it, you've got half an idea.
So you step up. Do you think being involved in the football club helped you with that?
Oh, I think the communication side of things, like being part of footy club since I was like, I can't even remember how old how young I was. I guess that teaches you a lot of people skills and learn and talk to everyone so on site. I'm guessing you need a lot of that because you meet new different people every day. So
yeah,
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Angus, tell us a little bit about your story.
So I finished year 12 and I was originally looking at doing carpentry, but my father, who's a builder, he persuaded me otherwise. So I joined the Australian Army as a fitter and armourer.
Okay.
So 4 years there. And then when I came home in 2018, I was looking for a job. So my dad's really good mates with our current boss. So, yeah, he spoke to him and here I am.
Wow, good on the dads. Sometimes there's always that saying, isn't it? It's not what you know, but who you know. But I think it's important that you just talk about your situation and you talk about maybe where you want to go and what your interests are. And obviously there's people around you that can pick up on that. I'm going to stick with you, Angus. Can you tell us what a typical day looks like for you?
So a typical day is a welder. Start work at 6 a.m, have your toolbox meeting, and mainly throughout, like you'll either be like cutting steel, tacking up steel, like members, like beams, columns, rafters, and then you'll weld them out as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And also like going off, figuring out all your like what welds off drawings and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Was there any particular subjects at school that helped you in this role?
Well, during school I did like maths definitely helps. I did woodwork in years 11 and 12 and also did trade school, which helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where was trade school?
Where?
Yeah.
I did it at Go Tape in Shepparton, William Moore campus.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Dion, what about you? What does your typical day look like?
Yeah, pretty much the same. We've been starting at 5:30 every morning, then get in the car and we do a little bit of local stuff, but it's more just get in the car and drive to site, which is always doing a fair bit of Ks. Last year, the majority of the work was down. I was in Melbourne for almost a year doing all the Ballarat line overpasses. So we're doing that, but yeah, a lot of steel, lot of sheet metal, a lot of drains and everything you can think about roof plumbing, really.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now I'm guessing, Craig, that your day could be a little bit different.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we don't start at 5:30, Liz. We actually we kick off about 8. Then Dirksy does it. Our days are very short compared to yours, so light-wise. So we start at about 8, and we run around the station and we've got to treat the water that comes in here and make it safe and potable to drink. So we start off with treating water basically, and then doing a run around the station to make sure nothing is tripped overnight. And particularly in Antarctica, when we're down there, we have obviously big freezing issues. So there's a lot of maintenance and alarms and things like that. So yeah, generally just we run around and do corrective or organised maintenance, and then head into any project stuff that is on our list for the week.
Yeah, great. So how old were you when you had your first experience down there?
It took me a while to get into the system, Liz. I was well into my 30s. I had applied. It had always been my holy grail to come to Antarctica. I applied when I was young, and I was told to keep trying and resend my resume when I'd been around a little bit more, which I did. So, Yeah, so it took a number of years, but it was definitely well worth the wait and the upskilling to get here.
Yeah, excellent. And obviously you go back, what, you year after year, or you have a break between, or?
They're separate contracts, so you apply each time. So it's actually a federal government organisation we work for. So we apply for a contract annually if you're going to stay for the year, and then we go from there. So which entails a couple of months training in Tasmania and pre-departure before we sail.
So yeah, we just had a question actually come through from one of our panelists. How long is your time on? You call it MACA, is that right?
Yeah, so it's Macquarie Island. We abbreviate it to MACA. This Macquarie Island is generally a year. They do basically 2 contracts. You can do a summer contract or a winter contract. So a winter group sort of basically maintain the infrastructure for summer science, essentially. So quite a small group, 15 to 20 people on each of our stations. So which is 3 Antarctic and 1 sub-Antarctic, which is MACA, the one I'm on at the moment.
Okay, great. Now, how long did it take you obviously left from Hobart.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast sail there.
How long did it take you to get down there?
Depends on the weather. The weather's usually quite brutal. Fortunately, we had fairly calm seas. And it takes up to 2 weeks to get to the continental station. So somewhere between 9 and 14 days, depending on which one you go to.
Wow.
So usually with some very rough weather. You feel very small out there, that's for sure.
Oh, I bet you do get thrown around a bit. Well, yeah, I didn't expect it to take that long to get down there, so it's a slow trip.
Yeah, it's 4,000 odd k's really down to the continent, so it's a long way and quite a bit of bashing through the ice when you get closer.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So obviously they've got to pick their times when they can actually get through.
Yeah, pretty much. They do that sort of stuff going into the summer months when the sea ice thickens up, so they can actually ice break the ship into the stations essentially.
So we touched on a little bit.
Flying option these days at Casey, but that's the only one.
Yeah.
Very short time.
So we touched on a little bit with the boys, Dion and Angus, and I'll go back to them in a minute. So what subjects did you study at school, Craig, and did you have to do any additional training for you to be accepted onto Macquarie Island?
Not really. I wasn't particularly academic at school. I wouldn't have thought. I was out kicking a footy or climbing a tree, more so than studying, probably. So just your normal subjects, really. You know, your maths, your English, and whatever else. And then it was just an apprenticeship, really, Liz. And then from there, just as I mentioned earlier, a bit of extra training with solar and welding and sort of whatever else came up, really.
Yeah. Okay.
It's and then areas. It's quite a rigorous application for this thing. So I mentioned it took a few goes. So I was sort of branching out into different areas of plumbing to get the experience that they actually wanted, I guess. So but you sort of look after a small town here. So there's water, there's pumps, there's air conditioning units, there's sewerage, there's roofing, there's a bit of everything. So
okay, so it's quite diverse. Yeah. Yeah, great. So Dion, the subjects you and Angus studied at school, can you talk to us a little bit about those? And did you have to specialise in a maths subject or?
No, I never. To be honest, I wasn't the best probably school student. I did start doing VCE, to be honest, but I think it was just I got halfway through it and it just really wasn't. I did want to do a trade, and I don't know. There was no point in me really doing it because that's what I really wanted to do. So
okay, yeah,
but, yeah.
Okay, so
the subjects then I did do though, it was just the normal work. I did the English, maths. I never did like advanced or anything, but and then I was more like the woodworks and the metal, and that's when I really started to enjoy that type of thing, and that's where I went from there.
Yeah, is that a similar experience for you, Angus?
Yeah.
Although you did finish VCE, is that right? Yes.
I finished VCE, but my ATAR was pretty low, and because I already had like the military lined up, I didn't take school much like my brothers.
So what did that experience in the army, do you think, teach you? And what skills or characteristics do you use today in your role that you would have learnt during that time?
Like leadership, courage, teamwork, they're all mass values of the Australian Defence Force. And they carry over to like work now. And like as a fitter armourer, I was mainly like lathing, milling. I did a lot of welding in the army too, which that helped transfer over to now as a welder at CPE.
Yeah, okay. And did the Defence Force assist with your transition to, you know, outside the Defence Force, if I call it the outside world, or, you know, normal life, or?
Yeah, they do. Like you get assigned a case manager when you leave like 2 months out. They help line up everything to transition back into civilian life.
Okay, all right. And were you a cadet before applying for Defence?
No, I'd never done cadets. I just joined up, went straight to Kapuka.
So you just basically got in contact directly with the Defence Force careers area and went from there? How did you do that?
So I just jumped online and looked at DFR recruiting, and they like, you jump on there, they list all the jobs that are available, and just applied from there. And yeah, you do an interview, and like medical and all that, and then you go back for another interview, and then they tell you whether or not you're accepted, and it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months, or I got 2 weeks notice, and I had a job.
Okay, excellent, good for you. So so working with steel as a product as opposed to some other industries that we've talked about this week, what do you enjoy most about working with steel?
Well, steel's good. So, like, even though you shouldn't, like, if you make a mistake, you can always grind it off, or if you need to add more, you can sort of just weld more on there.
Okay.
And, not too close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just I enjoy working with it over like timber.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Dion? What do you like about working with steel?
I think it's more the fact of working outside. I just, I love it. I just don't see myself could sit inside and do an office job all day. Like being outside and enjoying it.
Yeah. Okay. So, Craig, how much is your inside and outside time? Obviously, you're a bit restrained by the hours of daylight, but during daylight hours, are you outside most of the time?
Yeah, pretty much, Liz. I've got a bit of paperwork to do with a bit of supervisory stuff, but it's a bit of admin, but it's probably 70% outside, I guess. So, everything's located outside, so that's kind of where our work is, unfortunately. But yeah, it's very diverse, which keeps it interesting, which is good. So you're constantly. I was getting prepped for this morning, and one of our circulation pump in the main powerhouse we have here actually broke, and so we're running around trying to fix that this morning before we came online. So there's always something popping up, but it's it keeps you on your toes and keeps it interesting.
Yeah. So how many people are working down there at the moment?
There's at the moment they're developing a plan, or they're putting some infrastructure in place to actually renew the station here. The station here was originally built in 47, 48. So it's quite old. It's got a lot of rustic charm, but it requires a lot of maintenance. So this was actually when Douglas Mawson actually transmitted from Antarctica, there was a repeater station put here for that purpose way, way back. So it's quite a bit of history, and there's a lot of old infrastructure that needs to be upgraded. So plenty of work for anyone who'd like to join the Antarctic Division.
Yeah. Okay. So what's been your biggest challenge since you've worked down there?
I guess it's the environment mainly. It's interesting working. Obviously, we don't get to go home to our families of an evening and a weekend. So there's things you miss, you'd like to be home for, clearly. But, we have a great group. you form some great bonds down here. So I guess that you have a surrogate family, I guess, in some ways for the time you're here, but probably environmentally, really, and at times not being able to escape the community. But no, first, it's predominantly it's a fantastic experience, which is why I keep coming back. There's some great people here and some incredible wildlife and stuff that you can really only read about. We talked about it earlier, but it's an incredible place to work and step over seals and around penguins, and it's quite amazing.
Yeah, as we discussed earlier before we went live, I was saying, is it like living in a documentary? Is it like National Geographic? Really? Is it?
Yeah, it really is. You've got to pinch yourself. You get used to a 3-ton seal on the ground in front of you. It becomes a sheep or a cow after a while. It's just what your reality is.
Yeah, so I would encourage any of our young people and attendees today to obviously, get onto Google and just, look up Macquarie Island. I'm sure there's some images there and probably little videos and that sort of thing, which would give you some idea of the landscape that Craig's working in. So I wanted to ask Dion and Angus, when we're talking about obviously steel and we're talking about construction and different projects, what's been the most rewarding project, Dion, that you've worked on?
I reckon the overpasses we did 4 or 5 overpasses the Ballarat line from Ballarat to Melbourne, and I reckon they were definitely they're pretty technical, but I think when everyone that drives past, like my relatives and stuff, every time they say they see it, and they're pretty impressive to look at.
Yeah, excellent. And were there any challenges with working on that sort of project?
I think I know that we did work long hours, and because you're living away from home, whatever, you don't get to do your normal like after hours activities and stuff, and see your family and stuff. But I think other than that, it was not really. I think it was long days and traveling. Like some days, a normal day was probably 12 hours there, and then some days work up to 17. Like because you do night shift and then you drive home, and there was a 3.5 hour drive, and it was pretty tiring. But it was pretty good in the end.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a bit of hard work involved.
Definitely.
Yeah, and commitment, obviously.
Yeah.
What about you, Angus? What's been the most rewarding project that you've worked on?
Like a lot of the jobs we do, like the best thing is like all our hard work and effort that the workshop puts in is being able to see the final product or like the continuation of the job when you go there. So like GB Hospital is one. We're currently finished one stage of it. But even seeing that, it's like really rewarding to see what our hard work goes into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And have either of you been able to get creative with steel? Like, is there any projects that you've looked at or that you've been given to complete and thought, oh, crikey, how are we going to do that? Or, you obviously find steel fairly easy to work with and you like working with it. Has there been any real sort of creative or design challenges?
Yeah, so we like building our VTC, like Victorian Tunnelling Centre down in Melbourne. We had 2, like the entryway was all curved steel, and welding that, like most people in the workshop just looked at it, and it took a lot of figuring out on how to actually weld it, because there's no straight lines to measure off or. So that was, an interesting build.
Okay. And when you guys talk about these, local government or state government projects, are there any other requirements that you need to be able to work on sites like GV Health, for instance?
So like, I feel like, all job sites you need a white card, like Victorian white card, and then to do other like tasks on site. Most of us have like boom tickets, dotting tickets, so like crane dotting tickets, and but they're the only ones I really think of that you need.
So for our young people who don't know what they are, how do you obtain those? Is that something your employer helps you with?
Yeah, the employer does help. You can do them through TAFE. I know Joe TAFE runs them all the time. I did mine through One Stop Driving School in Bundalong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. All right. So now I'm going to switch back to you, Craig, and I'm going to think about, or want you to think about, what advice would you give our young people today? Thinking back on your journey.
Yeah, as I touched on earlier, it's a tough time to make a big decision. Yeah, and be prepared to give something a go that may have not originally been on your radar, that may take you in a completely different direction than you might have actually otherwise thought. Don't be afraid to go back and try and upskill or change direction if it doesn't work out for you. Like, as far as having an apprenticeship and having a trade, even if you went in and became a doctor afterwards, you've always got that to fall back on. And yeah, it really is a tough time. I would probably, in retrospect, go back and study harder. But at that time in my life, that was the last thing on my mind. So
I was just going to ask you that. Is there anything that you would have done different?
I probably would have gone into more of an environmental angle. I would have stayed and studied. But, being a plumber is actually, it doesn't sound very glamorous, but it's actually got me around the world. I worked in the UK for 5 years, and I've recently been working in the Pacific and Indigenous communities and Antarctica, and now Macquarie. So yeah, and as you said, it's a growth industry. There's always work, and you're not stuck in a retail kind of environment. You can come and go and travel and make a phone call and basically start work the next day. So it gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah,
I've been very lucky.
Do you think? Do you agree that there's going to be plenty of opportunities forward in the future? Great trade to get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. There's obviously a lot going on, and there was a lot of career focus in the past and going to IT and other areas. So there was a big black hole for trades a few years ago. So, which is slow to fill. So there's a lot of opportunity, and if you otherwise lived a fairly adventurous life, and it really gives you the scope to travel and if you want to go and work in the Pacific or go to London, you can just go and pick up work there quite easily.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably not you think of lots of other careers where people can travel. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have thought that plumbing would have been one of those careers where you could, but yeah, obviously you can be a tradie, a plumber in other countries. I'm not sure what the legislation is or how you apply your skills from one country to another, but it's obviously possible.
Yeah, of course. If you have a work permit, you can apply your trade anywhere, really. And a few years ago, I looked at joining the UN actually and doing aid work or wherever you were deployed. So you can go down all kinds of areas. And I spent 3 or 4. I did 3 or 4 trips to Tuvalu, up in the Pacific there, working as a plumber there last year and the year before. So yeah, it's really interesting if you want to keep traveling and keep discovering new places. It really does open some doors for you.
I'm thinking too that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Australia is very regulated when it comes to our work and OH&S and work safety. And obviously for a young person who's in a trade and is qualified, to take their skills overseas would be seen as, a good person to probably have on board, seeing as that we are quite regulated in our industry. Would that be right?
Yeah, big time. I spent quite a few years in London working, and we were always very sought after because our apprenticeships were a lot longer than the UK guys. So they might do a year, we'd done 4. So your skill set was so much more diverse, and you were so much better trained. we weren't that popular because we were popular. So it was very, very easy to get work.
Yeah. So Dion, I'm going to ask you now, what advice would you give our young people today? A big question,
always,
no, but
what's that? Sorry.
it's a big question, but yeah.
No, I just always have a good attitude towards things, and like just go your hardest. Like show someone that if you're willing to work, it'll pay off in the end.
Yeah. Okay. And is there anything that you would do different if you look back?
I don't know really. I think I started apprenticeship when I was, if anything, all my mates started when they were even younger than me. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't I'd get into the trade a little bit earlier, I reckon, because all my mates, I was still doing my apprenticeship when all my mates were qualified and they were all already making good money and stuff. It didn't really matter about that. But if I was to do it again, I reckon I'd just probably get into it a bit earlier. I think I left it a little bit late.
Okay. All right. So maybe some of those other people had a real clear idea of where they wanted to go and just got straight into it, did they?
Yeah, well, that's what my mates did. I think I was still a bit on the fence of what I wanted to do, but if I could have got in a bit earlier, I think I would have done that.
Yeah, okay. What about you, Angus? Any advice you'd give our young people today?
Just be versatile, like show initiative, and yeah, you'll strive in the industry. Pretty much.
Yeah, okay. And is there anything you would have done differently in your time from then till now?
No, not really. Like nothing would have changed. I had to, in our family, like it was required to finish year 12. But if I could, I would have rather started the apprenticeship a lot younger.
I hear where you're coming from. I have a daughter who just finished VCE, and yeah, she just needed to be sort of gently guided towards the end. Look, she was really pleased with herself, and it probably gave her confidence that she did get through it. But yeah, I don't think she would have got through it without a bit of nudging from mum. But yeah, she's enjoying a gap year now, and we'll see where that takes her. So yeah, any tips you'd like to throw out there to our young people? Dion, have you got any tips for them?
Yeah, like I said, always just be outgoing and willing to just give anything a go.
Yeah, great.
And, yeah, never think anything's too hard. If you try hardest, I'm sure you'll get somewhere in the end.
Yeah, great. That's some really great advice. Any tips from your end of the continent, Craig?
Pretty much the same as Dion and Trevor. Just have a positive attitude and be prepared to do something that you think may not be your thing. It may well be your thing. So you just never really know. And yeah, it's never too late to go back and study and reskill. But yeah, there really is a world of opportunity. And yeah, just have a good attitude and have a crack, really.
Yeah, that's some really great advice. I'd like to thank you all very much for your time this morning. If there's any other questions that our people want to pop through, yeah, please just type them in. There might be a poll or so jump up on your screen. So just if you could answer that for us, that'd be great. But good luck. Dion and Angus, where are you based today?
Yeah, we're both in Wangaratta.
In Wangaratta.
Yeah. Job site here.
Yeah. Okay. So
Wangaratta coastline we're building at the moment, so it's come along well.
Oh, right. Great. Fantastic. So obviously with the company that you work for, being positioned in regional Victoria is a good thing. You get to move around. And you do get that experience in Melbourne, even though it does mean being away from your families. But they've probably got less overheads being a regionally positioned company. So you've probably got the ability to maybe move around and experience different projects. So good on you. I might see your face pop up again one day. Craig, thank you for your time. Hope you're there's not too much troubleshooting you've got to do today, and the weather is kind to you down there. And thank you so much for your time. It was fantastic.
No worries at all, Liz.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
So, I think the girls might jump in and, yeah, it was great. Great.